Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building. We have Congresswoman Cori Bush. Welcome.
Yes.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. You know, I like you a lot. I watch you when you pop up on MSNBC and stuff like that. And I like you because as a member of the Democratic Party, you aren't afraid to call out the Democratic Party. Why is that?
Well, you know what? Just even walking in here, you have a picture of Michael Brown Jr. hanging up in the room next door. Mm-hmm. That's how I got into this, was just feeling like we were out there on those streets of Ferguson for more than 400 days. And it was like, we were doing all of that work, putting our lives on the line every single day, like really putting our lives on the line. But we didn't have much inside that could make change that needed to happen inside. Mm-hmm. that was fighting for us, like fighting to the point of putting their name and reputation on the line. And so, I didn't want to be in Congress to have a name or a title or to make more money or any of that. I don't care about any of that. Mm-hmm. I care that I'm saving lives. There's Black people dying every single day at the hands of police, or whether it's healthcare disparities, environmental injustice, so much over and over again. And I feel like if we play with the thing, if we don't address poverty head on, if we just, if we do what's comfortable, people will keep dying.
That's right.
So I don't have time.
Well, what got you into politics?
It was that. It was when Michael Brown was killed, and just, being out there with, all the tear gas, the heavy surveillance that we were under, and not only right then, but even for years, the rubber bullets, the real bullets, just everything that we saw as we were trying to fight for justice, and just feeling like nobody, like we were tossing up these pitches and nobody was there to hit the ball, and so feeling like how do we get that unless somebody from this movement runs? And, it was tough. My dad's been in politics for most of my life, and so I swore I would never do it. But it was like, how do we get this change? I don't.
What did you see when your dad was in politics that made you say, I don't want to be involved?
Well, because my dad he's the guy. He was an alderperson, then he was a mayor, and now he's an alderperson again. He was just like always giving himself, so much of himself to every person that he met. He was the person that would build one person at a time. He didn't have to go to the masses. But so many like criticism and scrutiny and, just so many just like horrible things, the corruption that would come around. And I would wonder, like, why do you volunteer to do this work? Now I get it. Now I understand, because I've been able to see youth that he helped when they were 16, 17, their families that he helped come back to him and say, because of what you did, you changed my life.
Wow.
And so, but I just didn't want to have any parts of that. I just felt like, that can't be my role.
Well, you got it now. you in the eye of the storm right now.
Yeah.
So for most people that don't know, what is a congresswoman's job? What is your job day to day?
Yeah. So as a congresswoman, I represent a district within the state of Missouri. So it's about roughly 750,000 people usually. Mine is a little less than that. And our job is to legislate, to think about what's happening in our communities, what do we need, and write bills that would affect change in that area, to speak up for the district. So I know that St. Louis is, my district is St. Louis. Let me rep my city and my town.
Hey.
Look, and so St. Louis, usually number one or number two for homicides, fluctuating year after year. Usually we are number one for police murder year after year, number one for the murder of children. We have all of these environmental issues and so much that just attacks the Black community. So for me, and as the Congresswoman, I'm looking at how do I make sure that I affect those things. Now, a neighboring district may be a lot more affluent. Their issues are completely different. So that Congress member speaks up for those issues.
Now, let me ask you this. We've heard people say, and Charlamagne, you've said this too, that the Democrats suck at messaging.
Yes.
And so in particular, defund the police always comes up.
Always.
Right. And so I wanted to ask you, what are some messages that you think Democrats need to get across so that people are clear on what needs to get done?
I think that when we look at the American Rescue Plan, Last year, so much money, and still money is still being allocated, being dispersed, but so much came out of the American Rescue Plan. In St. Louis alone, we were able to get $700 million that we wouldn't have gotten had we not had our own office not pushed to get money. It was money for housing. It was money for, because so many people lost homes or needed the rental assistance. It was money for healthcare. It was money for just going in so many different areas. But we got to message that and say how that money actually affected, the education system. Money went into schools. So we got to talk about that, but we also cannot be afraid to talk about what defund the police means. We cannot, and that's my issue. It's like, you can't. The anger cannot be, defund the police makes people, it pushes people back. It makes people feel a type of way. We don't want to say that, because the Republicans are coming against us. No. They don't get to tell us what our message is. Fix the problem, and then I won't have to say defund the police. Fix the problem, and I won't have to talk about livable wages. Fix the problem, and I won't have to sit here figuring out how I'm helping Black women right now, because even as we're saying, these great job numbers came out today. America added 378,000 more jobs, which is wonderful. But for Black women, again, Black women, our numbers did not get better. Our numbers got worse. Why is it that Black women are the only ones whose unemployment numbers got worse? That is, and so we have to make sure that our messaging has to target that. You call out Black women. You call out the Black community and say, hey, these are the issues that the Black community is having, and this is how we're going to address those things head on. Like, not we control our narrative. Like, that's the one thing that I learned out on the streets of Ferguson, because people stole our narrative so many times. They would say one thing and would do another. And so we learned, you better speak up for yourself. And I just have no, I don't care what people say about me. I don't care about a name or reputation. I care that my people get what they need. So they can attack me about defund the police. They can attack me about caring about environmental issues when Black kids in St. Louis are 10 times as likely to go to the emergency room for asthma. You can attack me on those things and say, you just playing to a base. No, I'm trying to save lives.
So why do Democrats always let the right co-opt their slogans like defund the police instead of just simply explaining what defund the police is? Right. Forget the slogan, just explain what it is. Why don't they do that?
Bipartisanship. That's what I hear all the time. It's bipartisanship. We got to make sure that we don't upset them, because when they come back into power, they're going to mistreat us. Well, they already mistreat us. Mm-hmm. They do whatever they want.
They're doing that now.
Right.
And they don't care about bipartisanship?
No.
So I'm really confused on how that works.
Yeah, I don't get it, and that's why I don't play with it.
Mm-hmm. Somehow they're always able to make the message that Democrats put out seem like something other than what it is. Like when they were saying Joe Biden is handing out crack pipes.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. If they want to try to be the bullies, what we need to do is just what does our backbone look like? Like, stand up. Like, you can only keep coming at me with a narrative until I straighten out your narrative. And so one thing that I did when I was running for office, I know my ish. I'm cool with it. I'll talk about my own problems. You ain't got to bring it for. You ain't got to go dig and find it. I'm gonna bring it out myself. So the same thing with as the party, we should be able to stand up. Yeah, this is what we said. This is what we mean. And we take over that narrative. But I just,
even with that though, that it was safe smoking kits, whatever you want to call it, whether it looked like a pipe, whatever it was. Yeah. But instead of just explaining what the program was. They out there, no, it's not a crack pipe. Who cares?
Right. Explain it.
Just explain what it is.
That's the whole thing each time. It's like, explain it. Like when people attack me, I even have members of the Black community that say, you're wrong we don't want to defund the police. We want, it's a mixed bag in the Black community. Well, part of the problem why it's a mix, people say, I'm not going to say that it is. If people say that it's a mixed bag, it's because making sure that people know what it is. When I talk about actually what it is versus people hearing these Republican talking points, then it's like, actually we do need that. When I say, it doesn't mean that when you call 911 that no one will answer the phone or there's no police officer that will respond to your crisis. Mm-hmm. No, actually what it means is that, we don't need to spend all of this money on stockpiling SWAT gear and MRAPs that cost $300,000. Why do we need that big old tank looking thing in our community? Mm-hmm. Who is it for? Who is it against? Mm-hmm. Why do we need bear spray that burns your skin for 22 hours? Why do we need that in our communities? Why won't we put that money into substance use programs and education and healthcare and, money for our unhoused community members? Why don't we do that? And we've seen it work. That actually, that frees up when we send mental health providers on calls when people are suffering from a mental health crisis, when we send therapists to go see about our unhoused community members instead of police, it saves lives.
That's right.
And then it allows the police to be able to do their job.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, with the sanctions that they put on Russia, what were your thoughts? And also, it always seems like they have no money for our community, but when it's time to help another nation, they can send ammunition, they can send money, they can send all that stuff. So
clear billions of dollars like it's nothing.
Absolutely, $10 billion. So the sanctions, what I wanted to see was direct sanctions that were just for Putin. Direct sanctions that were just for those Russian oligarchs. That but the one problem with sanctions is that it can take on a life of its own. And so what we didn't want to see was just broad sanctions where then you have regular people, just the regular citizens that are the ones that carry the brunt of it.
The regular citizens are affected.
Absolutely.
Like they're saying no Apple iPhones. If you break your phone, you can't have an iPhone. You're a regular citizen. You got to get in touch with your kid. You can't have a phone.
You can't have a phone. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. People
Putin
showing
doesn't care
up
about your phone.
No.
I obviously don't care. Same thing. I just seen Nike said there's gonna be we're not releasing any sneakers to the Russian citizens, and I'm like, that just seems weird to me.
Yeah, and it's not the people. It's not the people that are the ones that should be carrying this, because this was unprovoked. What Putin did, it was unprovoked, and these are crimes, against humanity, and so they shouldn't be the ones carrying the brunt of this. So I am against just broad sanctions that hurt regular people. But I'll say this: just hearing that, there are Russian oligarchs and even Putin that, you have assets in America. Like, even hearing that, like, how do those things happen?
I said that this morning. I was shocked how much business Russians do here in America.
Yeah, and so, but when we're not paying attention, that kind of thing happens. And so actually right now I'm looking at, okay, while we're talking about all of this that's happening in Ukraine and Russia, what else is happening that is not being talked about? Because that's how so many things.
The Senate rejecting the bill to codify abortion rights.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Exactly.
Like, I haven't, 3-4 days ago, I haven't heard nobody talking about that, really.
Yeah, everything is just being like passed on. Even talking about how the black asylum seekers over in Ukraine, how they're being treated. We can't get enough attention put on that, but everywhere we're seeing black and brown people being pushed to the side, no matter what part of the world you're in, and that's happening right now. We can't even get, we can't get real answers on why black people that are in Ukraine, brown people who are in Ukraine can't get out.
Can I comment on your fingernails? Your fingernails are fire, by the way.
People, you're supposed to change your nails and you're supposed to change your hair and all of this. I'm who I am.
There you go.
And it's good because you use your hands a lot, so we
I
get
do.
to see them.
That's why I'm like, damn, her fingernails fire. Who did her nails?
Yeah, these were still my Black History nails.
You don't want to shout out your nail tech?
Oh, it's
That means she's still paying full price. That's why she don't get no shout out. I understand.
But should the United States be sending over money and weapons to Ukraine?
I think that sending over. So I look at this two ways. I look at it from the standpoint of the person who's on the ground, who has to move and get out of where they are, just in case their home is bombed. So do we need to make sure that humanitarian aid is there? Absolutely. Absolutely. We should make sure, but it's not just the United States. It should not just be us. There should be other countries should be helping to make sure that is done. Because if it was us and we needed help, we would need someone else to help us. Mm-hmm. Weapons. So we have heard reports of people saying, like, one of our issues is we just don't have weapons. We don't have anything. We don't have enough to fight with. So I'm not somebody that I'm anti-war. I'm anti-war, so I'm not for that. But I do understand. I keep going back to, what if it was me? What if it was my kids and they had nothing to fight with? So I think the thing is for me, do we make this, how militarized is this, what we're sending over? How is it, how can we do this? Why are we talking about sending more weapons and we are not even talking about a diplomatic solution? What about a ceasefire? What about really making it clear that we need a ceasefire? What about talking to the allies, to those folks that do have good relationships with Russia? Why not bring them to the car? Why aren't we talking about Saudi Arabia? Why aren't we talking about some of these countries that have those relationships? Because I don't want to keep thinking about sending weapons, because weapons hurt. At the end of the day, those weapons will hurt innocent people. But also,
what about because they said that that Ukraine they got rid of a lot of the stuff that they were going to get rid of because the U.S. said that they would protect them if there was ever a problem, and they did, and now there's no protection.
Yeah,
they nukes.
Yeah. I think that what we keep hearing is that the U.S. has sent more weapons. The U.S. has sent more weapons. Knowing what the difference is, I guess, is what we're hearing versus what actually happens on the ground. And that's honestly, that's where I get stuck sometimes, because I've seen how you're told one thing, you hear one thing, but then actually what the people experience being something different.
Yeah, I don't like the double talk. I don't like when the president says, "But we're not going to war with Russia," but you're handing them the guns. And you're giving them the money and the resources. So what's the difference? I think they
send military.
They sending soldiers over there.
Yeah, the neighboring countries, just in case.
Do you think that we'll end up sending troops into Ukraine?
I thought they did already.
No, they're in the neighboring countries. The president keeps saying not. I honestly don't know. But I also don't think that this is going to be something that's just going to last this year or next year. This is probably going to be like a decade, or more, if we don't actually, if we don't do something.
What do you think about Manchin and Sinema making Biden looking so ineffective? Or is the Biden administration just ineffective, period?
To have these two senators that have been able to totally disrupt his agenda, it bothers me day to day when I think about the 4 million children that just went back into poverty because that child tax credit ended in January. It ended in December, really, because they didn't get it in January. And when I think about who could have changed that, and I think that Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema should not be able to make decisions for the entire country, for people that don't have to live the way that don't have to live. They don't have to live the way that other people have to live. They don't have those same issues that other people have to face, and to make those decisions, it's absolutely it's reprehensible that they just don't even, that nothing happens.
Why don't put sanctions on them?
Yeah, well, look at here. We first of all, we need to make sure that they don't get, they should not represent the people. Because the other thing is, when you're in the U.S. Senate, you don't just, as much as you sign the document to say you represent this particular state, your work affects the entire country. And so they have no business being in those types of positions if they don't care about regular people. If you are so corporate backed that all you care about is those corporate donors, then go do that work. I feel like that, not just me, but me and 5 of my friends, quote unquote, people call the squad, we stuck our necks out, because we knew that we can't lift up one group of people. As much as we want the infrastructure money, we absolutely want that money. We want to make sure that our roads and bridges and, all of that, we want that money that was in there for climate. But when you say, well, we can give you this, but healthcare, home health workers, we don't want to deal with that. Oh, children need child care. Oh, no, we don't want to pay for that. We don't want money for community violence prevention, and we don't want to lower prescription drug costs. We don't want to cap insulin at $35. No, we don't need all of that. We just need to take care of our roads and bridges. I have a problem with that. Because even those folks that are working on those roads and bridges have kids where they could benefit from not having to pay child care, and so I feel like we stood up when the president made the phone call. He made a phone call to say, I need you all to stand with me and go ahead and vote. We have to move forward. We need to get the infrastructure package. We need to get that deal done today, that vote done. I was clear and I said no. I said I wasn't supporting that. because we have to, I didn't go to Congress. I didn't run the way that I ran. After my very first run to get in Congress, I suffered a very violent rape 3.5 weeks later.
Damn.
And I still ran. I still started running again 4 months later, even after I wasn't even back to work yet. After my second race, I was T-boned and couldn't walk the last 2.5 months of my race. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
What is T-bone?
Another car hit me.
Crash.
A car was revving up and hit me. And so but I still turned around and ran again. And then even I had COVID the next time when I was running, but I still ran again because I was thinking about how do we make sure that these voices end up there that can make change, even if it hurts me. And that's so I felt it was like, how can I turn my back on the people now? I went through all of that to get here. How can I turn my back on the people now? And it's not that I don't respect our president. It's not that at all. But I came here to represent the people of my district. And so they don't want to see, just because someone called you or just because somebody said, we'll offer you this if you do this. Bump that. They want me to stand up for them.
Well, I do respect that. But, sometimes they say, staying busy is a trauma response. It keeps you from thinking about all the things that you're going through. So are you okay after all of that stuff that you went through?
Yeah, I still... Therapy is, yeah. I have therapists, and I do things that help me to get through. So even this helps my trauma. That's right. Yeah.
That's
well, the little things on it, these rhinestones. So if I'm having a moment where I'm starting to feel triggered, then you rub on that, and it helps to bring you back. Oh yeah, I got all kinds of tricks.
Okay.
My mother still has her blanket after 75 years. My mom still has a blanket, and she rubs it when she's...
See, yes. Yes.
So you're actively healing. I got my Palo Santo here. We do all that.
See, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Okay.
What can the president do right now to get some of these bills passed? Because some people feel like he's not being aggressive enough.
Yeah. So what I've been talking about with people that I work more closely with, one of those people being Senator Bernie Sanders, is just the pullouts. What can we pull out of that Build Back Better Act, and to at least get some of these things done? So what can we do as a standalone bill? So can we do community violence prevention money? Can we pull that $5 billion out and go ahead and get that money? Can we do the child care? Can we make sure that 3- and 4-year-olds are able to go to school and the parent not have to pay anything? That would be if we get that would be the first time that's been done in 100 years. And I think about, as a single parent, how that would have changed my life, had I not had to pay for childcare for 2 children. And so just looking at how we can do that. We didn't get George Floyd justice in policing, but can we do something to get ending qualified immunity? I was just yesterday, I was at a press conference with the Joseph family, Andrew Joseph, the third, 14-year-old who was killed in Tampa, Florida, 8 years ago. 8 years his family has been fighting for justice for them, for their child, and accountability, actually, for their child. But 8 years and we're no closer to ending qualified immunity. So those are things that we need to be looking at, what we can pull out from that bill, from any of the bills that we haven't gotten. We don't even have voting rights.
Do you remember on the campaign trail when Democrats actually cared about police reform? When they used to at least talk about it? What happened? Joe Biden didn't even mention it in the State of the Union this week.
Yeah.
What happened?
The Republicans have been able to shape the narrative just so it's to the point of no matter what you say about police reform, it means defunding the police. No matter what you say about police reform, it means division. And but so for us, our voice has to be louder on what it actually means. And you don't get to tell us how we can react or how we should behave or what our anger looks like or what type of policies we should push forward. You don't get to tell us that if the problem still persists, because 2021 had the highest number of police killings in the last several years. So why did it get worse? Millions of people were out in the streets in 2020 fighting for justice for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many others. And the numbers 2021 went up. Mm-hmm. Why is that? because we're not doing what we need to do to address the problem. And like you said, if we don't bring it up, if we would have heard that come across at the State of the Union the other night, that would have set the stage, set the narrative. It would have said for the rest of the year, this is something that is a priority. Yes.
They ain't even mentioned it. Have you gotten a response from the White House? Because I know you said that you criticized Joe Biden for not even mentioning saving Black lives at the State of the Union. Have you gotten a response from them?
No, I have not.
Wow.
I'm surprised we haven't.
Wow.
But the thing is, our president and the administration, they know exactly how I feel in my conversations that I've had with the president or the vice president or other members of the administration. I have been very clear from day one. So it was I don't believe they were surprised.
Dems don't care about Black people no more. I feel like they got us. I feel like they know they got us. They can. Our votes are damn near guaranteed, and it's just like our issues and everything else can go to the back burner.
You know what ends up happening is, and this is something that at least this is my opinion. When I came to Congress, I was oftentimes told, well, shh, like, don't say those things, because we got to make sure that we get our more moderate Democrats reelected, because it's more important that we keep these seats than it is that we like really push in some areas. And I can understand wanting to keep seats because we need the numbers to be able to get things done. But I feel like more than that we have seen that happen over and over again, and we have so many communities that are missing things. That's why we get, how many times I remember hearing our former President Trump talk about, oh, well, these horrible things happen. This is happening in the Democratic cities. This is the Democratic cities that have the poverty and the dilapidated buildings and all of that. We can no longer push those communities to the side to be able to save seats. We got to do both at the same time.
That's right.
You save lives and you figure out how to communicate to save seats.
But Congresswoman Bush, because you mentioned it, how has voting rights become a far-left issue? The cornerstone of our democracy. How has that become a far-left issue? Why is that radical to talk about people having voting rights?
But when we look at the history, we had to fight to get those rights in the first place. It was definitely an issue of what white supremacy looks like in this country. And white supremacy is not dead. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't even have to morph. It is ingrained into this society. And so what we're doing is we're pulling the threads, trying to break that apart. But when we have people who get in power and want to hold those structures, that's where we get this from. We get the rhetoric that says that if we talk about voting rights, then that means that you're trying to push a black agenda. You're pushing a black agenda. Well, the problem is when black folks and brown folks and our Native community members are the ones that are targeted with the voter suppression. So to me, in a way, it looks like they're telling on themselves, because we understand who's always targeted with, you don't need to vote. Your vote does not count. We don't want people who are formerly incarcerated to vote. We don't want those who are currently incarcerated to vote. We want you to have a particular ID, and all of these things. We're going to shut down the voting, these polling locations in certain neighborhoods.
That can't continue to be the strategy for Dems, though, right? Dems can't always energize us to vote by telling us that our right to vote is being taken away. At some point, they should be governing like they want us to go out there and vote for them. I want to go vote for them because they're actually doing things for us, as opposed to scaring me and telling me, go vote because they're trying to take your right to vote away.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that at least with these pullouts that we're talking about, these standalone bills, that at least we can bring something home to say, look, this is what we promised. This is what we promised when folks showed up, when black and brown folks showed up all around the country to make sure that we delivered the White House and Congress for the Democrats. These are the promises we made, so we have to deliver on them. And I don't blame people. I hear it all the time when they say, well, why, like, you told us that if we did this, that we would get these things, and now those things didn't happen. And so why should I believe that something will change now? I get it. I absolutely get it. But one thing that I tell them is that your vote is not just for that one person or that one thing. There are ballot initiatives on that same ballot. There are other more local people running for office on that same ballot. The person, when you walk out your front door and there are potholes, there's a person that is the person that's supposed to make sure that that's taken care of. How your trash is handled, there's a person that makes that decision. Whether you go to school 4 days a week or 5 days a week, that's a person that gets to make that decision if they want to write that bill. I make it clear that it's so much more than, I know that sometimes Congress and the presidency looks like, oh, well, they don't care about us. But it's a lot of local issues there that we need to we have to care about.
I'm all about voting locally.
Me too. Before I go out and vote locally, I always make sure I research who's running.
Yes.
I pay attention like way ahead of time.
Yes.
I attend functions. There's people that I support. And I think a lot more people do need to do that, because when you go there, you can't just go down the line and try to pick and randomly pick who you're voting for. You have to know who's representing what. And even before you get there, you have to have showed up.
Yes. And I always look at, who were you before you decided to run for office? Like, that's huge for me. I don't care. Like, thank you for how you ran. This is great. But who were you before? Because I need to know your character and your integrity. If I'm putting my name on you, because I need to know that when they come at you with the money, that you're still going to hold, that you will stand firm. I need to know that when the attacks come, that you will be able to stand. So that research being done, beforehand is important.
So why should voters vote for Democrats in the midterms when Democrats haven't gotten done what they said they would thus far?
Yeah, but the alternative to that is people who are actively working against us, who are actively and speaking up against us when we know that we have a party. So
then people will say, well, Joe Manchin's actively working against us.
Yeah, if they were more Democrats
right,
in the
but
office,
it
wouldn't matter.
Or run somebody against him.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Speak out against him.
Oh, absolutely. He might as well just go ahead and be a Republican,
You're one of the only ones that say that. Everybody else be scared to death to even say his name, like he's Candyman.
Yeah, let me tell you, from what I've seen in my life, they messed up by not killing me during Ferguson.
Ooh.
So now, they missed. And so, those bullets that hit my car, they didn't hit me. They didn't hit my daughter.
That happened recently,
right?
right?
That happened. Well, that was another time.
But what happened?
Yeah, I heard
Both
about
those
this.
incidents.
So just recently, somebody came up to my car door. I was not in the car. I was inside of my home. Someone was in my car that came up to the car. The person was like, "What are you doing?" And they got spooked, and they turned around and they started shooting and dumped about 10 bullets into my vehicle. The person didn't get hit.
Thank God.
Yeah, so I came running like, what is happening? But yeah, so no, we were fine. But
was that a message? Was that
Did they catch the
intended for
person?
you,
Yeah.
or was it random?
I think it was just random. They, we didn't. There was no like investigation or anything into that.
What's no investigation? Police didn't come. They didn't.
I mean, they came and they took pictures. They got
fingerprints. Nothing.
I don't know.
How can you just chalk that up as random though?
Because you know what? Because I do live in a lethal, toxic environment, and we didn't catch anyone. We don't know exactly who it was. And it's not the first time it happened. The place where I live now, I moved from the other place. That my car got hit with bullets at that place, right in front of my home again. Another time, like I brought up, that was during Ferguson though, when our car was hit with bullets. So I've gone through so much. I'm not afraid to. I'm more afraid of what my people don't get. I'm more afraid of people having to deal with what I had to go through, like what that felt like. I had my security agents when that happened. I'm more afraid of what happens to our people who don't have any type of help, that are looking for an advocate. When I was sleeping out on the street, I didn't know who to talk to. I was sleeping on the street with my babies in the car. We had nowhere to go, and I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know how to get out of that situation. I remember being so hungry that I was only feeding my babies, and I would go for days without eating. I don't want anyone else to go through those issues, so I'm more afraid of not being effective enough to help those folks that are dealing with that than I am about some bullets that somebody could shoot at me, than I am about somebody hurting me and all of that. But I'm smart enough to know I got to be alive in order to do this work. So that's why I have security.
Yeah, that's what 50 Cent said. I know God protected me, but I still sleep with my gat, you know?
Look, he gives us wisdom.
That's right. I only got a couple more questions. Okay. I know you got to go, but I love this tweet you put out. Democrats trying to out-Republican Republicans is not a winning strategy. What did that mean? Yeah,
it's not a winning strategy. You can't, the whole idea, that was another part of the whole defund the police. It was just that rhetoric and, just making sure that they just keep drilling those points. But not just defund the police, anything. Like if we take the Republican talking points or if we allow them to tell us what we think or to stop us, I'm not one to, when I think about the insurrection, when I think about being there that day when the insurrection happened, when these folks attacked the Capitol, the next day we were right back at work. Right. Like we left, we left at 4:30 in the morning. We were back at like 9 a.m.
Still working alongside people who were involved.
Yeah, and I have to look at them every single day. I'm in my committees with them. I'm in the halls with them. They hop on the elevator. Like those folks are around us all, and their staff around us all the time. And so listening to the things that they say, they talk no matter what the conversation is about, it always goes back to, the border and who's trying to hurt us at the border. And, it goes back to, who are the thugs and just all of this kind of craziness. Those folks aren't standing up for us. Those folks don't believe that that black and brown people should have the same. It should be equal.
Those folks are the thugs.
The thing is
that at the Capitol.
Yeah, those folks.
People that stormed the Capitol.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Whatever they want to, whatever they can be called, one thing that they are, they racist is what they were. Mm-hmm. One thing that they are is they call themselves patriots. We got to take that word back. You're not being a patriot. That was not being a patriot. Folks, you know what? I can think about the folks that gave their lives, their blood, sweat, and tears to fighting in this country. Blood, sweat, and tears out there, even during the slavery. Folks that have worked. Think about the sharecroppers even today that lost their families, lost so much out there giving of themselves to not get anything back, going through slavery. Think about what happened during Reconstruction. Think about how Black Americans built enslaved Africans, and then Black Americans built this country, and how we still don't have what we should have from. There's been no reparations, and we're going to keep pushing for that. There's been no reparations. There has been, only division, and we can't even get equity. We talk about equality. We can't even get equity to even get to equality. Mm-hmm.
We ain't even hear Biden talk about that. Like all of those things that they use as talking points to real Black people in during the campaign trail. I didn't hear him talk about racial equity during the State of the Union. Didn't hear him talk about police reform. Nothing.
No. And so I talk about
Barely talked about voting rights, real briefly.
So I'll talk about it. I'm talking about reparations. I'm talking about all those things.
Congresswoman Bush, does it benefit Black people to be a part of any one particular party?
It benefits Black people, I believe, to look at who's actually, like, what do I need? Mm-hmm. And who's going to give me. Nothing is going to be perfect. Nothing is going to be perfect. No party is going to be perfect. So who's going to give me what I need, and how do I get there the fastest? I mean, we just gotta, we gotta put it out there. So I think we have to, because Black people are not a monolith, we have to look at who's doing that for us.
But should we be part of one particular party? Or should we just vote in blocks?
I think, I think it let me just say this. I'm a Democrat because when my very first run, I ran as an independent. I was running as an independent at first, and then I had to switch to a Democrat. I wanted to be able to go where the legislation was that meant the most for my community. Mm-hmm. But the issue is, when we look at what has happened over the last even few years since Donald Trump became president, he has that whole idea of his whole, like, the way he ran and what he believed is not only in Congress anymore. It's in our secretaries of state. It's in our school boards. It's all over the place. So now we're at a place where now we got to make that decision, mm-hmm. because the Republican Party is so much, like, there's a lot of just anti-Blackness in an anti-brown community, anti-Asian community, anti. So I think looking at who is going to care enough about your situation, I think right now we're still looking at the Democrats, even though it's not great. I'm not even going to lie, it's not great. But that's why I'm pushing for help, getting more folks that are willing to do that fight. You know, that's where we have to be.
Yeah, I often wonder nowadays, are Democrats really pro-black or are they just tolerant of blacks?
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. It feels like that's the party that tolerates us.
Yeah.
The most, but I can't call them pro-black because their actions don't show it.
Well, you know what? I think what's weaved in there, though, is still money. It's still money. Because I sit with these people all the time and they'll talk about like, yeah, Cori, we believe that. Yeah, we'll do that. And I say, well, why won't you support me on this bill? Why won't you do this? Well, see, I can't go against X or I can't. So part of it is, I support those things, but because of this money that I took or because of how I ran, those things. So that comes into play.
My last question, Congresswoman Bush, how would you define our democracy right now?
It's suffering. Our democracy never was strong in the first place. It never was strong because when you have whole groups of people that aren't where there is no equity and we're not equal in this country, it was never strong. But we're in a place now where I feel like it's being the little bit that we did have is being pulled apart and ripped to shreds. And there has been this mobilization happening that we didn't even see, that we didn't know about, and so we got to come out just as hard if we want to reclaim this democracy, and to the point where we actually feel it should be, not just where it was, because we got to do better than what we had. If we're going to do that, we got to come out harder than we've ever been, and we've got to do this thing differently than we've ever done it. And so I'm looking for more, quote unquote, warriors, soldiers that's willing to do that fight.
Right. Well, Congresswoman Cori Bush, we appreciate you for joining us this morning.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And it's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.